So, you want to write a book. Hi, I'm Emily, author of the Xeris Galaxy Saga, and today we're going to start a new series where I talk about the basics of writing a book. This is going to be great for beginning writers, or maybe those who have already started down the journey of writing a book, but they're not really sure if they're going in the right direction. We're going to get you there. Let's go talk about it. First of all, I'm really excited that you're here, and I'm even more excited that you want to write a book or that you have been writing one and you're just not really sure if you're doing it right. There really isn't a right or wrong way. Well, maybe there kind of is, but I do want to highlight some things that I think will help you on this journey to writing a novel, and that will hopefully set you up for success in the future. And just maybe some things that you wouldn't have thought about as well. Just coming from someone who's written, I don't even know how many books, over 50 books at least, as a ghostwriter, but then also in my own writing career. Now, before we get into the weeds of today's video, I want to highlight the 3 things that I think go into what makes a story a good story. And these are very simple things, and there's a lot more to it than this, but the 3 things are: first, just the plot of a book. Secondly is the characters. And then thirdly, what I like to think of as the special sauce is the author's voice. These things are really important, and really each one of them can be studied on their own, which is why they'll get their own video. But I bring them up because, as simple as they sound, they are also the most complex aspects of writing a novel. And they're also the things that you'll be basically focusing on for the rest of your writing career to hone in on and just do better with each subsequent novel. So don't worry if you don't feel like you walk away as an expert after this video series. It's going to take some time, and that's okay. So for today's video, I'm actually going to talk about 4 specific things that I think you need to equip yourself with as you step into this journey of writing a novel. We're not actually going to get to the specifics of the writing in this video, but please don't pass this one up just because you think, oh, I just want to know how to write this better or whatever. The 4 things that I'm going to highlight today, I think, are just absolutely crucial for any writer to understand wherever they're at in their author journey, because they lay a foundation, I think, for every writer. So let's just hop into it. The first one is just ask yourself why. Why do I want to write a novel? Now, there are so many different reasons why, but I kind of boiled it down to 3 that come to mind for me. The first one is that you just want the challenge. You honestly have a goal, and you're that kind of person who's like, you know what, before I die, I'm gonna write a novel. That is a really valid reason, and if that is your reason, awesome. I'm glad that you're here. But also, it's just, you tend to be the type of person who just sets a goal, and they're just like, no matter what it takes, I'm gonna get there. The second reason could be that you want to write this for someone else. I think of friends of mine who have children, and they have told their stories to their children, and now they want to turn around and write those down into books so their children can have them. And along that same line, you might want to write this for yourself specifically. So it's not so much the challenge, it's the fact that you love this story and you just want to get it out. And then the third reason that I thought of, and again, there's more, but these are the first things that came to mind, is that you want to be published. You see yourself as a writer, and you want to get this book out so that it can be the first of hundreds that you want to write and eventually publish someday. That is also really awesome, and I'm glad that you're here for that too, because we love to talk about publication here on this channel. Now, the reason why I say it's helpful to know your why is for several different reasons, but namely because these reasonings can either push or pull you depending on kind of where they're coming from and their strengths and their weaknesses. So as an example, writing your book just because it's a challenge and it's something that you want to do and it's something that you want to say that you've done by the end of your lifetime or whatever can tend to push you away from writing when other goals get in the way. But then on the other side of it, writing for publication can sometimes actually push you towards writing more because you're seeing it as a job and you're focused on it and you're thinking into the future of where your novel can take you. Now, writing for your children or writing for yourself can kind of land in the middle, right? If you're feeling motivated, you might write, but if you're not, then you might not write. All of these things are helpful to know in advance because they're going to help set yourself up mentally and hopefully emotionally as to what it will be like to write your novel. So just remember, when you might find yourself in a challenging situation and you're wondering, why am I doing this again? These are the things that you look back to and say, this is why I wanted to write this book. So whether you write those down or maybe type them up or I don't know, however else, speak them into existence, whatever that looks like, have them so that you know your reasonings. The second thing to consider is the how. How are you going to write this novel? Now, you're like probably thinking, well, that's why I'm here. But I'm not talking like really basic. So there are a few different ways that you can approach writing a novel. You could start off with pen and paper. And I know some of you might laugh, but I have several friends, published novelists, who start off their books, almost all of them, pen to paper, and that's how they get them down. And then I have other friends who just really enjoy that, but they kind of intermix. They might write it on their computer, write up a few, handwritten notes or whatever. But however you want to approach this, kind of having a plan in your mind of how you're going to get these words onto the page is really important. So you can use pen and paper, you can use a computer, which is what I do. You can use dictation as well as an option. And then to dive a little deeper into those things, let's talk about using the computer. Personally, I use a program called Scrivener, and before you go off and buy it, which I'd love for you to do, I do have a link down below, but before you jump into that, ask yourself where you're at in your journey. If you have been writing for a while and you're actually looking for some tips and some tools to help you along that journey because Word is just not cutting it, then Scrivener might be the answer for you. But if you haven't really done anything other than write a few sentences here or there, you don't really know what your writing life is going to look like, maybe hold off. Use whatever program comes with your computer. Or you can opt for something like Google Docs. I personally don't like Google Docs, mostly because I don't like being tied to the internet and there's some limitations there, but I know a lot of friends who have it and it's made it easy for them when they're sharing their work with others so that they can get feedback and things like that. But if you're interested in maybe having a place where a lot of things can kind of reside at the same time, then Scrivener might be a good option for you. I personally like to use my Scrivener in a very specific way, where I have a background that has my character images and inspirational images on it. I have my plot off to this side, and sometimes I'll have like editing notes on the other side, and I just pull everything into Scrivener. That's just where every part of my book is. And then oddly enough, I export it all and I go to Word when I do my next round of reading, but we'll get to that maybe in a different video. Anyways, Scrivener is a good option. Now, I also mentioned, dictation. So maybe you're someone who tells your story to your children at night. You can just put on a voice memo recording and then take that recording and use an online transcription to pull that basically into a document, or you can use something more advanced called it's called Dragon Dictation. I personally have not used it, but I have many friends who do. But that is, again, probably a more advanced step, and you wouldn't want to go there to spend all that money until you knew that you really liked dictation. But there are multiple different ways that you can get your book onto the page. And even another one that I just thought of is that you can actually type out your book in your notes app on your phone and copy and paste that into a document on your computer later. I have many friends who have found that is the most helpful way for them to just get words on the page. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we're focused on. But on the other aspect of the how is also just the timing of things. So if you have listened to my podcast at all, I've talked about this quite frequently, but I am a big proponent of planning. I do plot my novels. I try to plan out my writing year, but sometimes it doesn't always go as planned. But regardless or not of whether you plot or don't plot, or you're not even sure if you're going to do either of those things because you're not even there yet, that's okay. Really what I'm getting at here is, what is your intention? Are you someone who wants or needs the structure of, I'm going to write daily, or maybe that's Monday through Friday, or maybe that's all 7 days of the week, but do you need that structure to set aside a time where you're giving yourself half an hour or whatever to just write your novel? Or are you someone who's just going to say, whenever inspiration strikes, that's when I write? That's totally fine as well. That doesn't tend to work if you are writing for publication, but we can get to that later. Or are you someone who's like, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and I'm going to write my book then? That might be a lot, but I'm not going to say that you can't do it because I believe in you. But all of that to say, consider the how. How are you going to get the words on the page, and what time? What does your schedule look like in order to do that? The third thing is to ask who. Who is in your corner? This might be a bit of a touchy subject because I know from past videos, I've heard from a lot of you that you guys just don't have that community of writers around you, whether you've been writing for a while or maybe you're just starting off to write. I think especially if you're just starting, you're going to find that it's a little isolating. It's very much you and your device, whatever it is that you use to write. And that tends to be it unless you find yourself with a co-author or something. So first and foremost, it's okay to write if you don't have anyone else around you. I'm not saying that you have to have it or you won't be successful, but I do think that through revision, through critique, through input from other authors, that is going to be what creates a better book for you. So it is something to consider on this end of it as you're just starting off, where eventually you'll be able to find that community. So community is hugely important to me, and I have definitely been in a time of my life, of my writing life, where I didn't have that community around me. And so what I did was kind of threefold, and I'll start broad and then kind of work it down to a narrow point. And starting off broad, I basically looked for organizations that were for writers. I've mentioned this before, but I'm a member of ACFW, which is American Christian Fiction Writers. That is specific to Christian fiction, but I have just found that that worked for where I was at. That's where I found my agent, and that's just, been a good supportive community for me. But then I also became part of SCBWI, which is specifically for general market children's and young adult authors. And then I joined Realm Makers, which is such a fun community, and that is more focused on Christian speculative fiction. So that is kind of where I go for my sci-fi fantasy stuff. But there's so many other national groups that you can join, and too many for me to list and more than I even know about. But whatever it looks like, see if you can find a group that's national that you can join that offers classes or critique groups or things where you can get involved with other writers in order to put yourself in that writer community. And then on that second level, I started looking more local. Now, when I lived in Northern California, we didn't really have anything near me that I could faithfully attend because it was just too far away. But moving here to Indiana, I have found there are a lot more groups locally that I can join and a lot more writers, things that I can be involved with. But then on that third level, there's also a ton of Facebook groups, and that actually might be where you guys start, and that's totally fine. I kind of did it backwards, but starting off, finding a new writers Facebook group, or maybe a Facebook group that's specifically about the thing that you want to write, whatever that looks like, obviously read their rules, but see if joining one of those groups might help you. To me, the 20 books to 50K Facebook group has just been incredible, but it's going to feel a lot like you're jumping into the deep end because they're not really geared towards new writers. It's more for writers who are established or wanting to be heavily established as an indie author. But there's also just a lot of knowledge there. So that's one of the groups that I'm part of that I find a lot of value in. But there are just numerous groups out there on Facebook. So if you're wanting to put your toes in the water, maybe starting there is the way to do it. But just make sure that you have a plan. And another thing that I wanted to bring up that, I don't know, it's going to depend on your situation. But I have found that even if the people in my life who care about me really don't care about books, they still care that I care. And that is what's really, really crucial, is to have people around you who care for you, who know your desires. Now, you might think, well, Emily, I'm writing this book and no one's going to know that I'm writing it because I just don't know if it's going to be good. That's totally valid. I understand that. But I find that when we are able to share things, especially big things, dreamy things, with the people who care about us, they're the ones who encourage us. And also they kind of put a little bit of pressure on us to get those things done. So for example, I know when I used to write, I used to be part of like NaNoWriMo, which I know is not a thing anymore, but I would write a novel in November every month. And I would tell people that I was going to do it because you know what? That pressure of having someone ask, well, how's your novel going? it's good pressure. It means that I'm actually focused on the writing and I'm not letting myself have that out necessarily to not write because people are asking about it. You may not be at a place where you can do that yet, but I hope that you can get to a place where you can share maybe with your partner or maybe with a really good friend or whatever that looks like to say, hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm really excited about it, but I'm kind of nervous too. And they can just join in that joy with you without having to know a lot of the specifics. They don't have to read your book. They don't have to do any of that, but they can be a good encouragement to you. And then the fourth thing that I wanted to highlight in today's video is much less exciting, and that is the hard. So if you figured out the why behind your writing, you figured out the how, and you're figuring out the who, you also have to figure out the fact that it's going to not be that easy all the time, and that's okay. I think that there's something in us that tends to think, well, if something is hard, maybe it means I shouldn't be doing it. And I don't think that that is accurate, especially when we consider a lot of things in life that are good. Some of the examples that came to mind were like relationships. I mean, loving someone is the most amazing thing, right? But it's not always easy, but it's worth it. Home ownership is a great thing, but yet we have found out the hard way that it's not always easy, especially when you redo your basement and all of that. Or even starting a new job, it can be a really good thing, but it's not always easy to step into a new space. So the same way that all of those good things in our lives come about, writing is the same way. It is not always easy to sit down at your computer or at your notepad or whatever you have and to just pour out your thoughts into these new characters and these plots that you're figuring out and, you know, trying to see if your voice is good, whatever. There's going to be a lot of confusion there initially, and there's probably going to be a lot of second guessing. And honestly, you might find yourself getting to the end of your story, whatever length it is, and thinking, I don't know that any of this was good. And that's okay. We're all going to start somewhere with our writing, whether we've dabbled in the past or whether we're just like full force, you know, we've been writing for a long time and now we're like really getting serious. Whatever that looks like, you're going to find that there's just going to be days when you're not going to want to write, where the characters won't be speaking to you, where you just won't know what needs to happen next, whatever that looks like. But regardless of whether or not those things come into line immediately or whether you need to work through them, know that it's okay to exist in that state of hard. I like to think of writing a book as us going on a journey. So we're on the author's journey together, and that means we will hit some highs, we will hit some lows, and as we'll see in next week's video about plot, the same thing you put your characters through, you're probably going to go through yourself, but that is okay. That is all part of the process. Well, I just hope you know that I'm really excited that you've decided to join me at the beginning of your journey. I hope that the things that I share here will be helpful for you, but please let me know in the comments below where you're coming from. Have you written in the past and you're kind of recommitting to it, or have you found yourself having that desire to write a book but just not knowing where to start or what to do? Let me know below. I have several videos planned for this series, and at the end I'm going to do a Q&A video to hopefully catch any last questions that I may not have covered. If you want to, you can drop them in the comments below if you've got specific questions, or if you don't really want to have people know that you're asking these questions, you can direct message me on my Instagram page at Create, Explore, Read. But I just want you to know that I am so excited that you're here, and I am here to share as much knowledge as I have gained over the years of writing 15 plus novels with you in hopefully a way that is understandable. And if you haven't yet, would you consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel? Your guys' support means the world to me, and I'm just so excited to create videos for you each week. Until then, go boldly and write.